If you watch the news, you'll panic. If you listen to yourself, you'll be in a better place. And I just wanted to talk about this whole process of, is Bitcoin dead? Is it having a bit of a rest? Is it ready to take off? The truth is, for the third thing, is it ready to take off? I've got absolutely no idea. But I felt really proud of myself when, in the very early hours of Friday, I managed to buy more Satoshis when Bitcoin was at $98,000 per whole coin. I thought, oh, I've done really well. It'll pick up again later in the day and go up above 100. That hasn't happened. And now, recording this on the 16th of November, late on a Sunday evening, we're sitting at 94,200. I'm just going to update my little chart on my laptop. No, we're down another $30. 94,174. That's the price I'll peg against this video. Lots of people are panicking. A lot of money has left the marketplace, where people who maybe borrowed when it was at $120,000 in the last 2 months were thinking, oh, this is great, it's going to go up to 140, 150. And a lot of voices were talking it up to reach 150, maybe $200,000 by the end of December. That was one of the things that a lot of commentators have been talking about. I looked at some references to Cathie Wood, whose commentary I like. She runs Ark Investments. And she had a price which I referenced in a video some time ago, which was that Bitcoin would reach $1.5 million by 2030. Now, 2030 is only 4 more years away. So that's a very short time span for a product that has existed, for an asset that has existed for 16 years. So we have to, you have to, and I have to look at our holdings of Bitcoin as a long-term strategy, as a long-term activity. She says she remains extremely bullish. I'm taking this, by the way, from some notes of an interview she did on the 6th of November. What she says is, Cathie Wood remains extremely bullish on Bitcoin. She has, however, revised her ambitious forecast for the cryptocurrency. Speaking on CNBC's Squawk Box on November the 6th, Wood explained that the revision is based on the growing popularity of stablecoins and has led her to reassess Bitcoin's potential market share in the global financial sector. According to Wood, the widespread adoption of stablecoins such as Tether, USDT, and Circle's USD coin, USDC, particularly in emerging markets where people find it difficult to access traditional banking, that has affected her perspective. And she says stablecoins have become far more significant than we initially anticipated. Her firm has now lowered its 2030 bull case from 1.5 million to 1.2 million. Ark's latest projections now place Bitcoin's price at 1.2 million in a bull case, 600,000 in its base case, and 500,000 in its bear case by 2030. She continues to say Bitcoin is the most secure and decentralized form of digital money. Now, there are some positives to take away from that, and I want to look at that. When our family bought our first node, it was 18 months ago. And Bitcoin then was at $67,000. Now we're at about $93,000. So that's 40% up in 18 months. If you've got a stock portfolio and you've got a range of, 20, 30 stocks in your basket, you might have seen a return from dividends of between 3 and 6%. We've got some stocks that generate as much as 8%, but most of them are way less than that. And so to see a 40% growth over 18 months on your holdings of Bitcoin, that's a phenomenal benefit. It's an easy thing to look at. Yes, you can say, oh, it was in its 120s in the last 8 weeks, but October was a spike. And whilst many of us, myself included, thought, oh, this is great, let's see how far it can go, that's over, that finished. And we may drop, we might drop to 80, we might drop to 75. I've got no professional comment to make on that. This is just me holding on behalf of our family and continuing to do two things. One is to dollar cost average on a weekly basis. So we look at our family income every week, and at the end of that week, we will buy Satoshis. There are 100 million Satoshis in a single coin, so it's easy to acquire. For example, for $9,700 you're now buying a tenth of a Bitcoin. You're buying 10 million Satoshis for that amount of money. So you can do an enormous amount in terms of acquiring for your portfolio with a smaller amount of money than you were doing the same acquisition with just a month ago, just 6 weeks ago. So one of the opportunities to take out of this adjustment in price, or this plateauing in price, is that you're now getting more Satoshis per dollar than you could have imagined 2 months ago. Yes, if you are new to the market, if you started a month ago, 2 months ago, this will be frightening. And a lot of people who, as I said earlier, have borrowed and committed to financing their acquisition of Bitcoin, they've made a mistake and they are struggling with that. But if you are here for the long term, you're not looking to trade, you're not looking to make a margin every few weeks, you're in a good place and you are up compared to last year. So, for example, like I said, when I first was buying Bitcoin consistently a year ago, it was at $67,000. So the fact that it's at 92, 93 this weekend, I'm celebrating that. That's a really good achievement. And those 18 months are a very short time span in the life of this particular digital coin in terms of this product. We talk about the fear and greed index, and if you haven't seen that, you can look it up online. And at the moment, there is a lot of fear on the index where people are saying, oh, I need to sell, I have to sell, I'm under pressure to sell. And so they're leaving. By and large, those are retail investors, because commercial or institutional investors are looking at this and having a field day thinking, we can acquire a significant number of extra coin and bring those into our treasury company, bring those into our corporate holdings and have those on the balance sheet. Yes, the balance sheet will fluctuate on a regular basis, but you don't measure your balance sheet every single day. You look at it maybe every quarter. You want to know what the value of it is, but you're not making knee-jerk reactions to market pricing as you make a 5 or a 10 or a 15-year commitment to building up your corporate asset base with the inclusion of Bitcoin into your basket, into your range of assets that you're holding on to. So institutional retail investors, they are diametrically opposed to the way they behave. So as the retail investor is panicking, the institutional investor with cash on their books is saying, right, we will convert some of this cash and we'll acquire more coin and use that as a long-term hold to strengthen our company. I thought I was doing really well a month ago buying Bitcoin way over $105,000, $110,000. But like I've said, now we're down at 93,000. And it's part of the volatility that this process is. Bitcoin in the short term is very volatile. In the long term, you will see that it has a steady growth chart. But it's the peaks and troughs that are above and below this line that will scare you and cause you to panic if you're not aware of them. Add Satoshis to your portfolio every week. Take the opportunity to think, right, if I'm going to DCA or dollar cost average, I will take £500 or $500 and I will put that every week or every month or every payday into the acquisition of Bitcoin and buy Satoshis and focus on the stack, not on the price. Should you buy? Should you sell? Are we in a little bit of a plateau before we rise again? None of us know that, but what we do know is that if we acquire Satoshis and hold them, we are in a good place for the medium to long-term future. So keep stacking, keep buying on a dollar cost average basis, And you would be looking back in 3 or 4 years' time thinking, I'm glad I bought that dip rather than I sold that dip.